I'm Alexis Monroe, 33 years old. On the night of the Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards, just as my name was announced and the spotlight was about to hit, one of the organizers leaned in and whispered, "There's a serious issue with your file. We need to pause." Minutes later, my photo was circulating across forums, attached to fabricated accusations of plagiarism, fraud, and pending lawsuits. I stood frozen in the eye of the storm, not even understanding what had just happened. But when I found out the person behind it all was my own sister, I was no longer the same Alexis. What would you do if your own family sabotaged your career and then pretended they had no idea? Leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe if you've ever felt betrayed by those closest to you. My story didn't end there. What happened next was even more brutal. I still remember vividly that damp afternoon when I was 15. My teacher had called home just to say I was the only student in the grade to get a perfect score on the national math test. I came home with the certificate in hand, heart swelling, thinking I'd get a hug from my mom, maybe even hear Dad say, "I'm proud of you." But when I walked into the kitchen, Sabrina was sobbing, her hair a mess, stammering about how she'd broken Mom's favorite glass bowl. I stood there waiting for my turn to be seen. Eventually, Mom glanced at me just to frown and say, "You're home? Grab a broom and help your sister clean this up." I tucked the certificate back into my bag. No one asked. And I said nothing. Since I was a child, I understood this. In our house, Sabrina was the center. Not because she was smarter, stronger, or more responsible, but because she cried more, worried more, got overwhelmed more easily, and always needed someone to clean up her messes. Mom would say, "Sabrina's more sensitive than you. He's fragile. You need to be gentle with her." At some point, being gentle came to mean giving up everything, carrying the heavier load, and staying silent when I was pushed aside. In 12th grade, I got a full ride to an Ivy League school, the dream I'd worked toward since I was a child. But the day I received my acceptance letter, I came home to find Mom sitting close to Sabrina, holding her as she cried. Sabrina had just failed the entrance exam for the state university. "You can't go that far," Mom said after I hesitantly handed her the letter. "Your sister's in a delicate place. If you leave now, she'll fall apart. I need you here. The family needs you here." So I didn't go. I picked a business school in the city instead. My friends called me insane. My homeroom teacher came to our house to try to convince me. I said no. And when Sabrina was doing better, no one ever brought up the Ivy League again. As if my dream had just been an optional thing, easily discarded for the sake of keeping peace. I didn't blame Sabrina at the time. I told myself she was young, still struggling with her emotions. But later, even as she grew older, she stayed the same. Every time I achieved something, a promotion, an award, an invitation to consult, somehow she'd have a breakdown, pulling the whole family toward her again. And Mom would look at me and say, "Just step back a little. We need calm in this house." There was one moment I remember clearly. I was 21 and had just completed a research project that got published in a professional journal. I printed out the article and brought it home to show the family. Before I could even say anything, Sabrina grabbed a lighter to test out a new scented candle she'd bought. Somehow the flame caught a stack of papers on the side of the table. My entire article got scorched before I could yell. She gave a half-hearted smile and said, "Oops. Didn't mean to. My bad." Dad got up, put out the fire, then turned to me and said, "No big deal. You have it saved on your computer, right?" She didn't mean it. "Don't make a scene." I gave a stiff smile. Sure, I had the digital file. But you can't reprint the look of indifference in his eyes. Or the way her apology weighed absolutely nothing. I once told Mom, "I feel like no one in this family really sees me. Like I'm just invisible." She frowned. "Don't say that. I've always loved you. But you're stronger, I don't worry about you. Sabrina, I'm terrified she'll collapse without you. That's the problem." In their eyes, I didn't need love. I just needed to keep carrying everything. And if I got tired, no one would notice. Sabrina was never asked to sacrifice. She had the right to cry, to mess up, to fall apart. I didn't. I had to be excellent, dependable, emotionally mature. And I could never, ever fall down. When she messed up, I was told to forgive her instantly, because she's your sister. But when I was tired or hurt, no one asked. And no one offered me the space to fall apart, not even once. Maybe that's why, when I found out my name had been removed from a short list for a partner role at a major firm, with a note saying someone had warned them I was untrustworthy. I didn't need to ask who it was. Who else but Sabrina would have reason to ruin me like that? Who else in this family was protected so fiercely no matter what she did? The only question left wasn't why. It was, how much longer was I going to stay silent? How much longer before I got to be the main character in my own story? And that night, when I stared at the words, contract terminated due to ethical concerns, I knew no one in my family would stand up for me. And in that moment, I made a decision. If they had spent my entire life treating me like a shadow, I was going to shut off every false spotlight they used to cover it. And to do that, I would begin, not with revenge, but with silence. And preparation for the reckoning to come. It took me nearly a week to trace the source. From the moment I was removed from the honors list to the mass contract cancellations, I didn't feel like I was living in my own life anymore. My calendar was empty, my phone was unusually quiet, rejection emails kept rolling in. One creative director who had once invited me to lead a major pitch now coldly texted, "We received some internal material. It's best we part ways." I had no doubts left. This wasn't a PR mishap. It was a deliberate takedown. I reached out to an old friend who worked in commercial cybersecurity. I asked him to trace the links embedded in the leaked email. He got back to me 2 days later with a forensic report. The original content came from an IP address in West Loop, Chicago. Device: MacBook Air 2020. Secondary email listed as sabundered. I didn't need to finish reading. My hands were already trembling. It was her. Sabrina. I opened each attachment. Altered screenshots of internal emails, forged notes in a font mimicking my handwriting, accusations that I stole a colleague's idea in a recent project, and anonymous tips sent to multiple firms. At least 7 media and branding companies received these emails. Some stayed silent. Some terminated contracts without explanation. 3 of them sent formal withdrawal letters after receiving HR-related warnings. I sat in silence. My laptop open but my mind far away. 7 years of building a reputation, starting as an unpaid intern saying yes to weekend projects, pulling all-nighters on strategy decks, now twisted into a smear campaign by the person who shared my DNA. Not because I did anything wrong, but because she couldn't bear to see me stand where she couldn't. I called Lynn, a friend in the PR team at a firm that had recently pulled back on a consulting contract. Her voice was hesitant. "Alexis, someone sent my boss an audio clip. Sounded like you, yelling at junior staff, threatening to leak private contracts." He was shocked. "But I know it wasn't you." "An audio clip?" I asked. "Who sent it?" "Anonymous account. Just the clip, heavily edited, I think. The tone didn't sound natural. I believe it was doctored." I hung up, heart pounding. Sabrina didn't stop at emails. She'd faked a recording, engineered a persona that wasn't me. All because I'd been chosen to lead brand strategy for a sponsor she once collaborated with. Her former client had officially offered me the role after a single consultation session. He knew. And she retaliated. I scrolled back to her last message sent just days before the scandal broke. "Heard you're signing with Alder Whitman? That's exciting. Just watch your back. Those places change their minds fast." At the time I thought it was just a jab. Now I saw it for what it was. A veiled warning from someone already preparing to strike. I called my father, hoping, desperately, that someone might still be in my corner. He sighed. "Sweetheart, I know this is bad, but Sabrina's under a lot of pressure. He just lost a big contract. Her fans are turning on her. 2 of her investors pulled out recently. Maybe take it easy. It could just be a misunderstanding." "Dad," I cut him off. "Do you know that Sabrina created fake emails, faked audio recordings, and sent them to companies so they'd cancel on me?" He fell silent. "Do you know?" I pressed. "Dad doesn't believe she did it. Anyway, you 2 are sisters. No one outside the family will stick by you forever, Alexis." I hung up. No tears fell. Just a cold, hollow space spreading through my chest. I opened my phone and checked social media. Sabrina had just posted a photo of herself at a cafe with the caption, "Sometimes being betrayed by family is the expensive lesson you need to know who's real." In the comments, her fans were calling me out by name. Insults, threats. She didn't correct any of them. I didn't understand why it had to be me. I never took her spotlight. I just walked my own path, quietly, diligently, without noise. But maybe to her my existence alone was already a threat. I wondered, if I failed, if I fell into some bottomless pit, would she feel relieved? My phone buzzed with a new email. Subject: suspension of partnership due to internal ethics policy. Sender: the fourth company that week. I closed my eyes and sighed. By now it didn't hurt anymore. I just knew one thing: if I didn't act, it would keep happening. If I stayed silent like all those years before, I would always be a shadow trailing behind a girl who had been coddled so long, she could no longer tell right from wrong. I closed my laptop, picked up my phone, created a new folder. I named it Response. I got a message from Mom around 6 p.m. Dad and I reserved a table at Lakeview Restaurant, 8 p.m. Sabrina and Eric will be there. The whole family needs to talk. Underneath was a bright red heart and the line, "Connection is everything." I stared at the screen for a long time. In my mind, I heard again every word from the fake email Sabrina had sent. I remembered the edited recording, the voice warped into a version of rage that wasn't mine. I remembered each cancelled contract, each half-hearted apology from clients. And now, a dinner for connection. I still went. Not because I expected anything. Just because I wanted to hear them say it to my face. The upscale restaurant sat by the lake, with soft yellow lighting reflecting off wooden beams and the scent of garlic butter wafting in from the open kitchen. When I arrived, the whole table was already there. Mom in her beige fur coat, pouring wine into Sabrina's glass. Dad at the head, his expression stern, avoiding eye contact. Eric glued to his phone. Sabrina turned when I approached, red lips curling into a smug smile. "You made it." I didn't respond. I pulled out a chair and sat. The tension was so thick even the waiter asked cautiously, "Would you like to start with drinks?" Mom tapped her glass lightly. "Okay, we're all here tonight for one reason: reconciliation." I looked up, unable to hide my fatigue. Reconciliation between who exactly? Dad set his glass down. "Alexis, we don't want to drag this out. What's done is done. The important thing is, family is still family." Sabrina tilted her head, her voice syrupy sweet. "I don't know why you think I tried to hurt you. You know me, I'm not even smart enough to pull something like that off." I laughed. Softly but sharp like a blade. Not smart enough, but bold enough to send emails from a secondary account, doctor a recording and fabricate documents you sent to Alder Whitman's media team. Did you think they wouldn't forward it to me? Mom raised her hand as if to stop me. "Let's not dig up every mistake. What happened, happened. Sabrina was wrong, but you know her, impulsive, sensitive. You're the older sister, you should give a little." I turned to her. "Did you know one of the companies she lied to was a major investor in the firm I just launched? Do you know I spent 3 months building that relationship?" Mom clicked her tongue. "Women in a family, sweetheart, need to maintain harmony. We can't have outsiders seeing sisters fight. It doesn't look good." Dad chimed in. "This has reached the investment community, Alexis. People are talking. You need to be careful with your words. Clients don't like drama." I paused for a beat. "So you want me to apologize to her? For the sake of appearances?" No one answered. Eric shrugged, eyes still on his phone. "Come on, sis. Everyone gives a little, keeps things calm. No need to go nuclear." I set my napkin down. "So this dinner is just about that, then?" Mom gently squeezed my hand, almost pleading. "Family is the only thing that never leaves you." I pulled my hand back. "Wrong. Family is the first place I ever felt abandoned, long before those fake emails ever existed." The silence was deafening. Sabrina stayed quiet, chewing her lip. I stared into my water glass, seeing their distorted reflections ripple across the surface. That night when I got home, I opened every family group chat. Monroe family, sisters whine, mom calling. I clicked leave group on each one. No message. My phone rang over and over. I powered it off. The next morning I called my lawyer. Not to file lawsuits, but to begin a process. I wanted every piece of defamation tracked and verified. Every email authenticated, every device traced, every shred of evidence linked to its source. The lawyer's name was Monica, a sharp woman straight to the point. "We can verify the entire data trail," she said. "But Alexis, are you ready to go through with this? Because once we start, There's no going back to reconnecting. I looked her in the eye. I don't need to reconnect. I need the truth. She nodded and handed me a confidentiality agreement. We shook hands. We'll take it step by step. You'll need to be very patient. I'd been patient for 33 years. This time I wasn't using it to compromise. I was using it to end things. I woke up earlier than usual the next day, made coffee before the city stirred, and opened my laptop, not to send out resumes. Not to explain anything. I stared at a blank screen and typed the first lines of a plan I'd held in my head for years but never dared begin. The outline for launching my own consulting firm. No more clinging to old systems, no more dependence on old connections. I wanted something that was fully mine, free of scrutiny, judgment, and silent expectations. A small but focused firm dedicated to helping startups navigate the chaos of modern brand identity. I gave it a placeholder name, Northlight Advisory, Northern Light, to remind myself that sometimes the only light comes from within. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't post it online. I spent the next week quietly building the brand identity, mapping out prospective clients, reaching out to former colleagues carefully just to check in, never hinting. I knew I couldn't rush. What I needed was a quiet, steady launch. One so grounded no one looking down on me could stop it in time. On the 8th morning, just as I was about to send another cold outreach email, my phone rang. The caller ID read, Raymond Hale. It took me a few seconds to place the name. Raymond had been the CEO of Eastbound Group, the largest investment firm I'd ever worked with while at Marston Lane. He was a quiet man, unassuming, but his words always hit their mark. After a deal last year, he once told me, if you ever decide to step away from the old game and build something from scratch, call me. I thought he was just being polite. I answered, Alexis. His voice was low, steady, without pleasantries. I read Linda Chen's report last week. Heard you're building something new. I hesitated. I haven't announced anything. Who told you? Information walks fast, especially among the capable. He paused. I want to meet. In person. We agreed on a quiet coffee shop on Wabash. He arrived exactly on time. No bodyguards, no assistant. Just a notebook in hand and a gaze that seemed to see everything I hadn't said. I don't need a detailed plan, he said after ordering mint tea. I just want to know what you're planning to do. I briefly explained the direction of Northlight. No fundraising. No headlines. Focused on businesses that actually needed strategic foundations, not big names already saturated with attention. Raymond nodded. So you're done consulting for shiny corporations? I want to work with people who genuinely need me, I replied. Not those who see me as just another name on a project roster. He looked at me for a long moment, then opened his notebook and handed me a page with his signature. I'm ready to invest $3 million as a silent partner. I won't interfere with operations. I only ask that you stick to the philosophy you just outlined. I stared at the paper, my hands slightly trembling. Not because of the money, but because this was the first time someone trusted me at my lowest. He didn't need my past, didn't care about Sabrina's scandal, didn't ask a single thing about my family's mess. Why me? I asked. Raymond smiled gently. I saw you stand in the middle of a conference hall and challenge an entire boardroom with 3 slides and 1 question. You don't need support. You just need no one in your way. I nodded without hesitation. I don't retaliate with words. I retaliate with real value. He closed his notebook. Good. My lawyer will be in touch. And Alexis, don't let anyone make you doubt your worth again. After the meeting, I went home and reopened the business plan. For the first time in weeks, I clicked Create Website. Northlight Advisory appeared on my screen like a promise. I started looking into shared office space, scheduled interviews with collaborators, and sent out offers to 2 former coworkers who had been let go for standing by me during the previous scandal. Their responses came almost immediately. Just tell me when. I'm there. I knew I was starting from scratch. But this time no one held the strings. No one had the power to cut me off. No one had permission to touch the value I'd built with my own blood and pain. And Sabrina would soon learn that what she destroyed wasn't a contract. It was the last silence I had ever offered this family. One morning near the end of the month, just as I set down my coffee and opened my laptop, my new assistant Haley walked in, face a mix of excitement and hesitation. Alexis, I think you should take a look at the latest update from the Strategic Partnerships team. I took the folder and opened the first page. The logo of Whitestone Logistics was front and center, the largest auto parts distribution company in the Midwest. Below it, a signed notice of supplier transition, from Monroe Auto Supply to Northlight Advisory Partners, effective next quarter. I read it twice, stopping at the reason for contract termination: lack of process innovation, delayed response times, failure to meet post-audit standards. No mention of me. No hint of personal ties. Everything had been decided through the exact strategy my team and I developed. No bias. No vendetta. Just pure efficiency. I folded the document and set it aside. That afternoon, my phone started buzzing nonstop. First message from Dad: Alexis, can you pick up? It's urgent. Then from Mom: your father had a blood pressure drop this morning. Is this company issue related to you? Then Eric: Monroe Auto lost the Whitestone deal. Was that you? They said you already signed. I didn't reply. Sabrina took a different route. She didn't message me. Instead, she did what she knew best: she live-streamed. Tear-streaked, makeup smudged, she cried in front of thousands of viewers. I don't know what I did to deserve this, her voice trembling in the clip. I lost 2 contracts this month. My little brother lost his job. My parents nearly had a breakdown. And my sister, someone who shares my blood, hasn't said a single word. No explanation. No concern. With family like this, who needs enemies? I didn't finish the video. I just quietly turned off the screen. Haley returned to my office that afternoon, phone in hand. Alexis, someone's at the front desk. He says he's David Monroe. I froze for a second. Tell him I'm in a meeting. If needed, he can leave a message. Haley nodded. As she stepped out, I glanced at my computer screen. My name had just been confirmed as a keynote speaker for next week's National Creative Brand Conference. The title of my talk: Value Doesn't Need Protection, If It's Built Right. I smiled. That evening, Mom called 4 times. Then a message came through, long as a manuscript. Sweetheart, we know you're angry and you have every right to be. But this has gone too far. Your father built Monroe Auto from nothing. Now he's on the verge of losing everything. None of us can hold on to major clients. Everyone thinks you did this out of revenge. If you still care about this family, clarify that this is a misunderstanding. At the very least, pick up the phone. You're our daughter. Don't let this get so cruel. I closed the phone and set it on the bookshelf. Not because I wanted to punish them. I was just done explaining. The truth was, I hadn't personally pushed for Monroe Auto to be removed from the supplier list. My operations team, after evaluating their outdated processes, recommended switching to a more reliable vendor. I didn't interfere. I didn't need to. Their own stagnation, complacency, and refusal to improve had cost them the deal. Collapse never begins from the outside. It starts from within, from habits of underestimating others, from relying too heavily on family loyalty, from the belief that family will always forgive anything, even decades of injustice. 3 days later, Eric called again. His voice was sharp with blame. You're destroying this family over what? That damn contract. I answered for the first time. No. I'm not destroying anything. Take a closer look. See what's falling apart on its own. I hung up before he could respond. The next morning, I received the industry bulletin. Monroe Auto Supply loses over 60% of Q3 orders. Currently in talks for sale to an external investor. The last line read, internal sources report deepening rifts within the Monroe family. I folded the paper and leaned back in my chair. Outside the window, the sun was rising high, casting light on a new day. I was reviewing a sponsorship contract for a network of small businesses in the Midwest when Haley stepped in, voice softer than usual. Alexis, there's a woman waiting in the lobby. She says she's your mother. I looked up, momentarily startled. Did she make an appointment? No, Haley shook her head. But she's crying. I took a deep breath. Bring her to the East meeting room. I arrived a few minutes later. When I opened the door, my mother, Linda Monroe, was standing by the tall window staring out at the fire escape. The late afternoon light poured through the glass, highlighting the deep lines in her face, once softened by the finest creams. She turned when she heard the door, and for a moment, I saw confusion, frailty, as if speaking would take more strength than she had left. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice calm. She didn't answer right away. She slowly pulled out the nearest chair, set her purse on the floor, and then, without sitting, she dropped to her knees, both resting on the cold wood floor. "Alexis, if there's even a little compassion left in you, I'm begging you. Please stop." I didn't react. The flicker of surprise passed quickly. I simply walked over and placed a white envelope on the table. Inside was a bank statement from when I was 17. A scholarship account I had built myself, dollar by dollar, from tutoring, TA work, and weekend sales jobs. The money had been withdrawn on a July morning, Sabrina's birthday, to make a down payment on the turquoise Jeep she still used to film her vlogs to this day. My mother didn't need to open the envelope. She already knew exactly what was inside. She broke down crying. Not the soft, performative kind she used to put on at family dinners to win sympathy. This time her sobs cracked open, raw, desperate, almost begging. "I was wrong," she choked out. "But you can't let our whole family fall apart like this. Your father, he can't sleep. Sabrina, she hasn't eaten in 3 days. She says, you're trying to destroy her dreams." I stayed silent, watching the woman before me. The same woman who used to sit at the head of the dinner table and tell me, "Sabrina is fragile, don't push her into despair," every time I dared to protest the unfairness. The woman who once said, "No amount of education matters if it ruins the peace in a home." The woman who took my scholarship savings and bought a car for her other daughter, without ever offering an apology. I stepped forward and helped her up, but not to comfort her. "I'm not destroying anyone's dreams," I said slowly. "I'm just taking back what was taken from me. And if someone collapses because of that, maybe it's because they were standing on a foundation that was never theirs to begin with." She wiped her tears. "So you're getting revenge on the whole family?" "No," I answered, looking her straight in the eye. "I'm not getting revenge. I'm just done being silent." She collapsed into the chair, unsteady. "I have nothing left to defend myself with. But you can't abandon your father. Or Eric. You're the only one in this family still standing. Which is exactly why everyone thinks they have the right to drag me down with them," I said, my voice firm but not raised. "You didn't come here for me. You came here for the company that's falling apart, and for the people who once treated me as the last resort after they pushed me past the point of repair." "I regret it," she whispered. I didn't deny her that. But I didn't console her either. I opened a drawer and placed another file on the table. "This is the performance audit from my strategic analysis team. Monroe Auto didn't lose the contract because of me. They lost it because they didn't adapt. They didn't meet the standards. I didn't make any decisions. My team operates independently. And they did their job." She trembled as she opened the first few pages, eyes scanning numbers, charts, performance ratings. "I don't have to retaliate," I continued. "The truth has always been enough to put things back in their place." The room grew heavy with silence. She closed the file, hands clasped tightly as if something inside her might snap. "I didn't realize how far I'd lost you," she said, eyes red and puffy. "Since when did we end up with all these papers and proof between us?" I stood up. "Since the day you told me I should stay close to home, so your sister doesn't fall apart. Since the day you took the money I saved for college and used it to buy Sabrina a car, then called it a small sacrifice. Since the nights everyone sat together at dinner while I washed dishes alone." She lowered her head, silent. I opened the meeting room door. She walked out without looking back. And I returned to my desk, opened my laptop, and got back to the unfinished emails. Not because I was heartless, but because I could no longer live as the one who endures. The first email came from a former colleague. The subject line read simply, "Sabrina case." Inside was an attached industry memo stating that Sabrina Monroe was being sued by Bell Finch Advertising for providing falsified documents, including a fabricated social media engagement report with a forged verification signature. The lawsuit also referenced an advance payment of over $30,000 that had not been returned. I wasn't surprised. I'd seen Sabrina doctor screenshots before, heard her brag about tweaking a few numbers to impress people. At the time, I thought it was just harmless showmanship. But apparently, she had turned manipulating the truth into a profession. A week later, the National Bank sent a letter to my old address, listing me as the recipient. Luckily, the building manager recognized my name and forwarded it. I opened it and froze. My name had been used to take out 2 online credit loans totaling nearly $20,000. One from last year, one from March. Below the signature line was a typed name, Quinn Monroe. I contacted my lawyer immediately. Monica listened, then calmly said, "We have enough to file charges, if you choose to go that route." I stayed quiet for a long time. I didn't want to prosecute my own brother. But I couldn't keep cleaning up after a family that treated my tolerance as a given. We submitted a verification request and asked the bank to freeze the credit lines. Monica coordinated with the investigative unit. I quietly changed all my passwords, ran a full security sweep on my data. That was when I finally understood the cost of being reliable for too long. You become the person others assume they can lean on, exploit, even impersonate. News about David Monroe selling the house came soon after. A former neighbor texted me, "Your dad's listing the old place. Heard he's moving in with Uncle Bill in the suburbs." I looked up the address online and saw pictures of the house, the one tied to so many suffocating dinners where Mom used to ask, "What did you learn today?" and never waited for an answer. The house now had a price to sell quickly, bank payoff needed banner. One late afternoon, I returned to my apartment to find a pale gray envelope placed at my door. No sender. No postal stamp. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, neat, masculine, but unpolished. "Alexis, this is the first letter I've ever written to you that isn't asking for money, or accusing you of being cold. I just don't know any other way to say this. I read the file you gave your mother. The account statements. The scholarship funds taken. The performance review for the company I just lost the contract with. I can't deny it anymore. I can't pretend it was all just family dynamics. I used to think you were stubborn, ungrateful, too ambitious. But no. I see you're the only one who saw beyond the cycle we've all been stuck in. You were right. Not about stopping the help, but about protecting yourself. I'm sorry for making you carry that burden alone for so long." I folded the letter. No tears fell, but something softened in my chest. I sat by the window and watched the sunset streak across the glass. I didn't feel victorious. Just light, as if I had finally set down a weight I'd carried for far too long. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because words only matter when the actions that follow come from real change. And right now, I needed to focus on the only thing I could truly control, what I was building from here. Something untouched by borrowed credit cards, live-streamed breakdowns, or shallow apologies. Something built on real value and fairness. For me. My phone rang around 2 a.m. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was a misdial. But then the screen lit up with a name I never expected to see at that hour. Mom. I sat up, hesitated for a few seconds, then answered. Her voice was faint, almost broken from crying. "Alexis, I'm sorry to call you now. I don't know the right way to say this, but I need to say it while I still have the courage." I said nothing. I waited for her to continue. "I started therapy. Twice a week. They asked me if I was ready to face my mistakes. I said yes. But the truth is, I don't even know where to start. I know I left you alone for years, always defended what was wrong, always made you carry what wasn't yours." Her voice cracked. "Our family's a mess, you already know that. Sabrina, she's seeing a counselor too. He said she needs to face things. But she doesn't know how to begin if you're not there." I closed my eyes, resting my head against the bed frame, letting the silence fill the space. "I'm not asking you to come back," she said. "I know you don't owe us anything anymore. But if you're willing to meet just once, not as someone who has to forgive, but as someone who deserves to be heard, then I think maybe our family could start over. Even just a little." I exhaled, slow and deliberate. Only if everyone is truly ready. No half apologies. No blaming circumstances. And no more "because we're family" excuses. I'm not coming to play the peacemaker. I'll come under one condition: everyone must face the truth. My mother stayed silent for a long moment, then said softly, "I understand. And I agree." 3 days later, I walked into a quiet room with a large glass window overlooking the garden behind a counseling center in the northern part of the city. There was no chandelier. No clinking glasses. No one playing host. Just a therapist seated in the corner, notebook in hand, her expression calm. My mother arrived first. She looked older, her hair neatly tied up, none of the flashy accessories she used to wear. Then came my father wearing a gray sweater, shoulders slightly hunched. Eric walked in next, quiet, eyes down. Sabrina arrived last, no makeup, her eyes swollen from lack of sleep. I didn't greet anyone. I didn't accuse anyone. I simply sat in the chair placed directly across from them, kept my back straight and rested my palms on my thighs. The therapist spoke first, briefly explaining the purpose of the meeting. Not to apologize, not to force reconciliation, but to truly listen, one person at a time. She invited my mother to begin. Mom looked at me, her voice hoarse. I always thought I was doing the right thing by keeping the peace in our home. But it turns out I was only allowing the lies to survive longer. I'm sorry I made you feel alone in the place that should have been your home. I looked her in the eye. It wasn't a feeling. It was the truth. She nodded, eyes brimming. The therapist then turned to Sabrina. She sat still for a long moment before slowly pulling out a piece of paper from her coat pocket. I wrote it down, in case I couldn't say it right. I know I've ruined so much. I know that faking documents, sending anonymous letters, editing recordings, none of it can be justified. I didn't do it because you were wrong. I did it because I couldn't stand watching you move forward while I stayed stuck. I kept my eyes on her. No anger. No pity. Just silence, letting her speak. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want to understand, how much did you have to endure? And when did I become someone you had to fear in your own family? I didn't answer right away. The therapist nodded, allowing the silence to settle as part of the process. My father spoke next. His voice was slow but steady. I was wrong to think that providing financially was enough. I was wrong to let you carry everything and call it natural responsibility. I didn't realize that your silence was the most terrifying thing, because it meant you no longer needed us. I glanced at him, then turned to Eric. My younger brother, always on the sidelines, who had once used my name to take out a loan. Eric didn't look away. He didn't say much. Just mumbled, I don't deserve to call you my sister, but I want to repay everything. Even if it takes me 10 years. The therapist didn't interrupt anyone. She simply nodded now and then, placing her hand on her chest as if to remind everyone to stay connected to their true emotions. When it was my turn, I didn't read from a paper. I didn't cry. I'm not here for apologies today. I need everyone to understand that what I lost wasn't just contracts or opportunities. I lost trust. I lost years I should have spent simply being a daughter, a sister, a member of this family. I paused, my voice still even. I once hoped there'd come a day when you'd all realize how wrong you'd been. Maybe today is that day. But from here to rebuilding trust is a long road. And I won't walk it faster just because you're in a hurry. The room was silent. And I knew, if anything was beginning, at least it was being built on solid ground. Not the shiny painted-over cracks I'd spent my youth trying to preserve. 3 months after that first family therapy session, spring sunlight poured through the glass panels of the top floor where Northlight's new office was located. No longer a shared space with other startups, this office was mine. Built slowly, carefully, with each strategy, each value earned without compromise. I stood in the large glass meeting room, looking out at the busy street below. The conference table was already set with coffee, tea, and a few small pastry plates. I had no expectations, but I had prepared. Mom arrived first, wearing a soft blue coat, her face more relaxed, her pace slower but no longer avoiding eye contact. Dad followed, holding a neatly wrapped paper bag. Sabrina came last, dressed simply, her hair tied back. No camera, no livestream, phone in hand. I invited them to sit, handed each a glass of water. No small talk. I invited you all today because the company is expanding its communications team, I said, voice calm and clear. Our current staff is stretched thin. And I thought if someone qualified is available, it could begin from within. Sabrina looked up. Her eyes flickered, but she said nothing. Of course, I continued, if the candidate has previously damaged my company's reputation, returning must come with clear commitments. I'm not hiring anyone because they're family. Only if they truly want to work. Mom glanced at me, then toward Sabrina. Sabrina slowly nodded. I'm not here to ask for a favor. I brought a 3-month content plan based on Northlight's model. Not to impress, but to show I understand where I have to start. I took the pages she handed me and flipped through them. Clear layout, transparent data, no fluff. I set them down without praise, simply saying, if you're willing to begin as a supervised manager, reporting to Haley and our legal team, you can start on Monday. Sabrina pressed her lips together. Thank you for giving me a real chance, not because I'm your sister. I didn't nod. I didn't reject it either. I just wrote on my calendar, 9 a.m. Monday, on board Sabrina Monroe. At that moment, Mom opened the paper bag and placed a mahogany frame in front of me, covered in a thin sheet of glass. I looked down. Inside was a color scan of my freshman year college transcript, the year I earned a full-ride scholarship and was invited into the honors program, but was never allowed to leave Chicago and pursue it, because the family needs you close. This was hidden in the drawer of the old dresser, Mom said softly. I thought, if I didn't see it, it'd be easier to forget. But it turns out, I'm the one who never forgot. I gently touched the glass. The memory of being 18 came rushing back, me clutching my college acceptance letter while Mom wiped tears from Sabrina's face in the corner of the kitchen. I didn't say thank you. I just looked straight at her. Family, I said slowly, is not a place to endure. It's not a place that demands silent sacrifice. It should be where each person is free to be themselves, without fear of judgment or suffocation. No one spoke for a long time. No one disagreed. Dad sat up straighter, his eyes quiet as they met mine. You're right. I thought I'd spent my whole life leading this family. But really, I was just managing it. I never learned to listen. I turned the frame to face them. Then let's start over. But not by forgetting everything. By refusing to repeat it. That evening, I invited them to my apartment. Not a restaurant. No candles, no toasts. Just a small dinner table, a pasta dish I made myself, a simple salad and apple tart from the bakery near my office. We sat together and for once no one mentioned money. No one brought up the past. Eric called in late, just to say he'd completed the first stage of his debt relief program. I don't remember every word that was said during that meal. But I remember how it felt. No one owed anyone an explanation, a loan, or a role to play. Just people, trying again to be better. Not because I forgave, but because I finally understood that forgiveness doesn't mean erasing what happened. It means no longer letting it run your life. That's been my journey. Not easy, not fast, and certainly not perfect. But after all the damage, the silence, and the hurt, I've reclaimed my place. Not as the one who carries everything, but as someone who finally gets to live. And what about you? Have you ever felt abandoned by your family, labeled as the strong one who doesn't need support, or forced to keep a relationship alive that only exhausted you? Are you ready to stand up and redraw your boundaries the way I did? I believe everyone deserves to be heard, to live honestly, even if that means confronting the people we love most. Family, in its truest form, will never ask you to leave yourself behind just to hold on to it. If my story made you reflect, if you saw even a small piece of yourself in it, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you've lived through and how you made it through. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can keep walking through these stories together. Real pieces of life, sometimes messy, sometimes raw, but always reaching for healing.